we go. We're recording.
How you doing, everybody? This is Dennis Michelson. Welcome to the Science of Fantasy Football. Why the Science of Fantasy Football? Well, you get a meteorologist and a biologist together that are going to apply the scientific method to the world of fantasy football. What the hell does that all mean? It just means we're letting statistics guide us to the answer instead of just coming up with an idea and then cherry picking the stats to match what our opinion already is. And joining me as he does each and every week, not only here on the Science of Fantasy Football, but over at the Sports Affiliation on the Data Lab as well. He is the fantasy professor, a real professor. It's John Bush. And John, we are into the maximum chaos portion of the offseason because so much craziness is about to happen when the new league year starts here in a couple of weeks.
You're talking about free agency, right?
I'm not only talking about free agency, but I put a little chart. I put a little chart together for you to show you how much uncertainty is going on. Now, it's just a chart that's on scratch paper here on the desk. I haven't put it together in article form, which is coming probably this week.
Do I need to give you sharing permission?
No.
Okay.
It's just on a scratch sheet here on the desk.
Okay.
But it's my start of my way of thinking. And over on the Data Lab, over at the Sports Affiliation, we're talking about thinking in probabilities at the running back position. And I encourage folks, hey, stop this podcast and go over to the Data Lab over at the Sports Affiliation and watch that first. And then this will make even more sense to you. But thinking in probabilities, you have to look at different changes that are going to go on in horse racing. If a horse changes barns and goes from a crappy trainer to a great trainer, goes from a lousy jockey to a great jockey, those are changes that we know. If in stakes races, the horse all of a sudden gets an 8-pound allowance to the lighter side or an 8-pound handicap to the higher side, we know that is a change that is going to affect that horse's outcome. Similarly, if we're coming up to a big race and there's a big rainstorm, we now know, okay, here's the range of probabilities for this horse. But we're not sure what he's done on an off track. Maybe we can get a little glimpse, but we don't have enough data points to know. In fantasy football, how I apply this is I look at the chaos theory of what's going on across the league. 32 teams, right?
Yep.
So 32 teams, 10 of them changed head coach this year. 21 teams changed their offensive coordinator. 17 changed who's calling plays on the offense next year. Think of those numbers alone. More than half of the offenses next year will have a different person calling the plays. Almost a third have different head coaches. Now we look at the player level, and I've only looked at quarterback and running back. I haven't dove down into the wide receiver, the tight end yet. When I'm done with that, the article will be coming out probably next week. But if you look at the quarterback position and you look at how many teams know who their quarterback will be on week 1 next year. Now, this takes into account some injury concerns, right? Takes into account free agency and the draft. Right now, my estimate, only 21 of the 32 teams know who their quarterback is going to be without a doubt. And it's even worse at running back, Professor. How about only 15 of the 32 teams that I look at and I say, that is the definitive lead running back. So those are the interesting things that I look at and I'm like, ooh, that's a lot of change to consider all in 1 year.
So ADP, should that tell us what the public thinks, not what Dennis thinks? Have you looked at that? In other words, when you say 15, that there's definite, are those ADPs for those 15 different than the other, 17 running back positions? Or is there any difference here? Is that reflected in ADP?
That is a great question. And
That would be my question. Where's
yeah,
that
and
value? Is the value already rolling in? Has the public already misread things versus what Dennis is thinking?
exactly. There are a couple of things. First of all, if you look at the ADPs,
Mhm.
okay,
Right.
and I try to say, okay, is this already baked into the mix?
Right.
And I'm not sure it is or
Oh.
not, because when I look at the ADPs,
Mhm.
okay, and I say, okay, we're not going to care what Dennis thinks because Dennis isn't always perfect. I know how shocking that is to people that I would say that. But I look at it. So here's the ADP, current ADP right now.
Right.
FPPC, best ball slim. Just looking at running backs. Your
Mhm.
RB1, Bijan Robinson. He's definitely one of the guys whose situation didn't change. Jamar Gibbs, that's 2. Christian McCaffrey, that's 3. Ashane, that's 4. Taylor, that's 5. Gianti, that's 6. Cook, 7. Hampton, 8. Brown, 9. Barkley, 10. First 10, I totally agree with.
Okay.
Then we get to Josh Jacobs with Green Bay. He's at 12. Jeremiah Love is a rookie, so he doesn't count. But Jeremiah Love will probably land somewhere where he is starting. I didn't count him, though, because he's a rookie. Josh Jacobs, there's not a 100%. Like, he might not be with the Packers next year, according to the rumor mill. Then you get to Derrick Henry. I gave him credit for having a starting spot with Baltimore, no doubt, next year. Bucky Irving could be a split, but I think he's there. So out of the first 13
Mhm.
running backs, all but one of them is accounted for in there. But then you get to Breece Hall, he's going to have a new situation. You get to Kenneth Walker, he's going to have a new situation. Then you get to Kyron Williams, he's probably the number 1 starter on the Rams with a split with Corum. So I counted him in that 15. But then you got Travion Henderson. I don't know who the lead back with New England is, and it's possible it could be a 50-50 split. Then you get Harvey. Then you get Travis Etienne. None of those guys are a lock. Then you get Scatterbo, who I counted in that 15. And then you get Quinshawn Judkins, who I also counted in that 15. And that's my 15 right there.
Right.
But you see that there are some that are being forecasted ahead. Now, I'm not suggesting that Breece Hall will not be a starting running back. What I'm saying is only 15 teams right now know for certain who their starting running back is in a league that's going to have 32 starters. Now, we might not even have 32 definitive starters. We might have 7 or 8 or 10.
Last year at this time, did you do a similar study?
Yes. Quarterback was 17 at this time last year versus 21.
Okay.
That I did not look at the running backs.
But I'm saying this is the kind
way.
of data, Dennis, you
Yes.
build for your diary.
Yes.
Just, how close are you? If you're 15, half of them are real, that's not a good start. I mean,
No.
I would think at this point, I would expect you to be accurate at least 12. And I'm just kind of getting a ballpark here. It's a rule of thumb concept that we all start with estimating. So if Dennis, if the next 2 or 3 years, if you can't get me 12 out of 15, if you're like 10 or 8, I'm going to worry about you. I don't think so, given your money success, but that's people that are listening. That's something simple you can do now. Follow your thinking now. And let's say after free agency or say in April, then after the combine and the rookie draft, maybe early June, just start getting a feel for what you're thinking and visualizing versus, real after the fact. That could be part of your predictiveness. And I would speculate that if you're good early, then your advantage in best ball, for instance, might be stronger than if you're not good early. But if you're better late, like I think I am, because I do better at redraft. So, you need to track that. I urge people to start tracking that every year. So you'll have just as simple as who do I think is locked in as the lead RB, the QB, the WR1, the tight end one. Just make some predictions. Dennis, maybe I'll try to do that as well because I haven't, you told me your list, but I haven't looked at the data to know. Maybe I should start doing that. But I'm so busy on the data side trying to figure it out. I ain't had time to kind of soft speculate. But it's a good skill that you can practice. And if you're good at certain, like maybe you're the tight end whisperer, you won't know. But if you do this and you're right on a lot of the time, I think you have an advantage maybe in I don't know, yearly what NFL bets or something, seasonal bets. This quarterback, this is going to throw 20 touchdowns or whatever. If you're good at picking a quarterback and maybe you should start looking how would that help you make some money? In other words, the applied side of your predictions.
Yeah, and that's the key is and first of all, you're not going to be right on all your predictions because last year,
Mhm.
hey, I took a swing and a miss on Caleb Johnson with Pittsburgh with the Steelers, the rookie. I
Yep.
and I did so based on opportunity, not on his ability. It was all on opportunity. And the
What's the
numbers
formula of opportunity versus ability? Do we know that formula?
we
That rule
don't.
of thumb?
I don't think we do because I don't have what I would consider the ability to be as good as a GM for where these guys are falling in drafts.
Mhm.
And I'm very honest in saying that I can't evaluate players as well as the worst NFL GM. And that makes sense because if I did, then I'd be doing that for a living. Um, but what I do know is that Caleb Johnson was drafted with the 83rd pick in the draft. And that was sort of that red flag to me that, hey, I'm speculating here. Because if he was really great, he would have been gone by the third round.
Right.
Okay. So, you know, well, probably by the second round because he was gone by the third round.
Right.
But if he was really great, that number is going to be a lot lower than 83. He had been drafted much, much sooner, but it was a speculation on the position changing over, and it did. The position was very different than what it was the year before. And, Warren and Gainwell split the position and did quite well. They did better than the Warren Najee Harris split the year before. With Dallas, I didn't know who the guy was going to be, but I knew whoever landed in that role had a high opportunity index. And then, of course, the top were Giante and RJ Harvey, and they eventually took over the starting position very early for Giante, and RJ Harvey took it over by the end of the year. Now, that required Dobbins to go out. The key here is your forecast of the future of who is going to get that position. You're going to have some errors. Like, I don't care how good you are. All that concept does is give you a spot to look for in the draft. And the cheaper a guy gets who has a high opportunity score, I'm going to take the chance on that player all day long. And the other thing that this data set tells us, with only 15 certainties on week one, and that brings into injuries into play as well. But with only 15 locked in starters that are going to get a relatively high percentage, meaning more than 60 is, in that 60 to 70 plus range of touches. This opens the idea of my skill isn't 100%. There are a lot of guys that have not lived up to expectations when you look at it from an MVP score. And what that tells you is this idea of drafting both sides of a running back split and letting it all sort itself out during the season is probably a good strategy. The uncertainty at quarterback tells us, okay, there's 21 that are locked in. If I can find one of 12 out of those guys, I'm doing okay. I'm probably not speculating any deeper than that, right? Why not take a situation that is more predictable on the outcome, especially if they're rated pretty good with your metrics and now their ADP is affordable? I'm probably not venturing out of that top 12. But at RB, I got to venture outside that top 15. I've got to have two or more. I've got to have four of these guys. So this idea of splitting the backfield with if the ADP allows it, Menanje and Swift are going about 5 picks away from each other in best ball right now in FPPC. Unless I'm right at the end of a draft where I can grab one at the end of the round and one at the beginning of the round, I'm probably not getting both of them at cost. So I've got to decide
which
between
one would
two.
you grab at cost?
In that situation, with that much uncertainty, depending on where I am in the draft at that point, as far as having RBs, I might be looking somewhere else.
Right.
Because if I can't get them both, I might not want either, because they're both priced right about where they should be if they do take over that starting role. We're talking a difference in draft spots right now between the two of them of 58.8 for Swift and 68.8 for Menanje, but that's the difference of 2 running backs. Yeah, I could probably get them both if I really push it. But I'm talking end of the 5th, beginning of the 6th to get them both. That's where I'm going to have to spend my draft capital. And that might not be a bad solution. I don't know yet until I get to my forecast. But my whole point was to throw a little bit out there of saying 10 different head coaches, 17 different play callers, possibility of 11 different quarterbacks, and maybe 17 different lead running backs.
Right.
That's a lot of uncertainty right now on February 21st. Yet so many analysts out there are telling me this is my definitive list of guys that I want this year. Boy, don't know if I can be definitive yet.
Yeah. What is the definition of definitive?
I think that means these are my guys, which
Yeah.
means these are guys I'm going to take hell or high water, which is a bad strategy. As you and I have learned over the years, Professor, it's good to have your targeted bunches of players in each round. I want 3 to 5 running backs, 3 to 5 wide receivers that I would find acceptable at this cost. And then maybe 1 or 2 tight ends, maybe 1 or 2 quarterbacks, depending on the round.
Going back to Swift, is it his age that's a problem?
I think it's his volume that is the problem. I'm not sure. So last season we saw a split between Swift and Menange, right?
Yep.
Menange, being the rookie, might have taken a while to earn the trust of his coach, right?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of just trying to use some logic here. So next year, where is the coach's trust level of Menange versus where it was the year before?
Mm-hmm.
Probably increased, right? He probably trusts Menange with the ball, not to kill him, not to cause fumbles, turnovers, and probably saw very similar production at the end of the season from Menange. In the final games of the season, he was looking almost as good as Swift at times.
Mm-hmm.
Now, overall, for the whole season, Swift's MVP index was much higher.
Mm-hmm.
His best 8 games were much higher.
Mm-hmm.
His upside value is much higher, about 4 points higher, which is significant. So Swift is the better choice. Is he 10 picks better than Menange? I'm not sure yet. I'm not sure if he's a value at pick 58. I think he's a better pick than Menange, but I'm not sure if 58 and 68 are the right prices yet.
Right.
But what I wanted to show, and I didn't count Swift in one of those 15 either, because I think there's a chance there's a likelihood that best case is that he's still the lead running back, but he loses a little more volume to Menange. And that's the big concern. This is a contract year for Swift as well.
Mm-hmm.
Menange is on is under contract through 28. And then if that's not enough to get you worried about the value of Swift, you got Roschon Johnson still under contract. He missed all of last year or most of last year. So does he figure into the mix in 26? And does that affect the 58.8 ADP right now of Swift? 58.8 might be a great price. It might be too expensive. I haven't decided. I haven't gotten that far yet, Professor. All I'm trying to show is that there's so much uncertainty out there right now that we need to be looking at metrics like you showed us over on the data lab. This concept of thinking in probabilities as the starting point before we do our forecast. Just like in horse racing, we look at what we look at: buyer's ratings.
Yes.
We look at class ratings. We look at the win-loss percentage and the amount of money the horse has won. We look at the jockey. We look at the trainer. We look at all of those. Now, I've got my refined list of horses that made the cut, didn't make the cut, right?
Right.
Then I try to figure out how the race is going to unfold. Your thinking in probabilities data for each position gives us that metric look, top to lowest, before we apply our forecast logic for 26, was there a head coaching change? Yes. Is it likely to be, in the case of the Bears, let's take Swift through this decision tree. So was there a head coach change? No. Was there a play caller change? No. Ben Johnson's still calling plays. Was there a change in competition at the position? Well, Roshan Johnson is back, and Menanje is now a second-year player who might have more trust. So, yes, there might be downward pressure on Swift's volume. Did the offense get better or worse? Probably slightly better. Offensive line's not going to change that much. The quarterback's not going to change, and he might get better. The wide receiver group is good, so that offense should be solid. I'm not sure it's going to get any better, significantly better, but end of the year, that was pretty darn good offense. So I'm pretty happy with the quality of the offense. I'm just not sure where it's going. Those are the types of things. And your metrics already looked at age.
Yes.
So I know for a guy going from Swift's level of maturity to his age 27 year, and I think it's like his 6th year in the league, I want to say, we know what he's likely to be based on that. It's his 7th year in the league.
Right.
So I know if I throw out his high in MVP and I look at the rest of the data, that tells me I got a range on him, a logical range in MVP of about RB9 on the high side to RB30 on the downside. That's a big range before I even factor in any of these other things.
The question I would have for people, the tied situations, how many of those were you successful at? So we asked how many of your locks were real.
Yes.
How many of your ties were really ties, and were you able to pick between the ties or to take advantage of that? That would be a question I would have that in your diary.
So yes. So at quarterback, I know that answer.
Mm-hmm.
At quarterback, the 17 that I said had no competition for that starting spot.
Right.
All 17 were starters the next year. At running back, I didn't define it the same way as I have here, so I have no comparison.
Yeah. But
same with wide receiver and tight end.
You should.
Oh, yeah. Definitely this year, I'm going to be forecasting that data of, and again, we're not looking at injuries that can happen during the 26th season. Right. I'm looking at guys that are gimpy now. So part of that 21 was not Patrick Mahomes because we don't know if he's going to be ready on week 1 yet.
Yeah.
That did include Jackson Dart. I'm more confident that he is going to be ready on week 1. That's where, and I'm not, Daniel Jones isn't on that list for 2 reasons. He doesn't have a contract yet. And number 2, we don't know if he's going to be healthy week 1.
Right.
But of the 17 that I forecasted last year as not changing, I was right on all 17, which, was a sign that I'm being very conservative in how I'm attacking that number. So for us to be at 21 right now is a little bit more certainty than we had last year at this time for the quarterback position only.
I'd say for Superflex, that's really a key thing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And even in one quarterback leagues, like right now, if I look at the ADP currently,
Right.
I look at a great opportunity that if it stays this way, I'm going to exploit it all day long.
And who is that?
It's Patrick Mahomes at RB12
Mm-hmm.
going with the 90th pick. But what I'll do is I will pick another quarterback to go with him pretty quick.
Yep.
So
She's not ready week 1 or 2 or something.
correct. So I don't have to make that investment until I'm getting into that 7th, 8th round, which is the perfect place for me to go quarterback shopping. You know, I've already talked about that.
Right.
And if I go in and I can get him at that cost,
I'm assuming Allen is number 1.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So
Where
Allen
is Lawrence and Purdy going? And Drake May?
So Allen is number 1. So it gets rather interesting at quarterback right now. And again, this is FPPC.
Oh, yeah.
Best ball slim. Always like to define where I'm getting the data from.
Yeah.
Right now, it's Allen 1 with pick 26.6. So you have to get him early 3rd round.
Right.
Then it's a drop to Jackson at 44.4.
Yeah.
Drake May, 44.9.
Right.
Burrow, 52.2. So those 3 guys are going really tight.
Yeah.
Then it falls to Jaden Daniels,
Yeah.
58.7. Jalen Hurts at 63.
Right.
Caleb Williams at 72. Then Herbert, 75. Jackson Dart, 77. Lawrence isn't going until pick 80.
Nice.
So a strategy that I would not be against right now if I were to draft on February 21st would be to grab Lawrence at 80 and come right back with Mahomes at 90. I can comfortably get those guys.
Where's Purdy at?
Purdy is all the way down at 90.9, just going right after Mahomes. And he's another guy I wouldn't mind.
I was about to say, I would.
And I can get Goff at pick 100.
Yeah.
So if I waited on Mahomes at 90.
You could stream home golf with Mahomes or Herbert. Yes. I mean,
yes.
Lawrence or Purdy, Mahomes. I could see you mixing and matching those 4, even, yes. Dennis, and, playing into golf being, hot dog at home and leaning away from him, in a windy or a situation that wasn't at home and looking at your other guys. I'm feeling like streaming this year. I'm not feeling like I'm going to get a lot of elite quarterbacks. I don't know. I'm probably may be wrong, but just not sure I want to pay a 3rd round for Allen right now.
No, and my data suggests that it's not a good idea to pay up. And it's not that Allen isn't the best bet on being top 5 at quarterback or anything like that. It's what you give up in those earlier rounds at running back, wide receiver, or even tight end that would have me wondering whether it's the right 26.6. That's about where that's pretty expensive.
That's expensive. I just, just not sure I'm willing to pay right now. If I was doing best ball, I would be probably grabbing 3, and 2 of those 3 might be those 4 or 5 we talked about. I'm not sure I'm in on Jackson this year. I sure wasn't sure. I sure wasn't happy about what I saw, this variation.
No,
and Hurts was also kind of wonky, I thought.
Yeah, and everybody in that first group of 6, actually 7, I'm gonna include 8. The top 8, I can I have big question marks about all of the top 8 when it comes
Yeah.
to fantasy football.
Yeah.
And the first guy I'm really comfortable with his fantasy football production.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a little concerned about his injury potential. That's
Yeah.
Jackson Dart.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I get down to Trevor Lawrence at pick 80. I get Dak at 84. I get Mahomes at 90, Purdy at 90, Goff at 100. Stafford, of course, if he's playing,
Right.
and if
If
he
he's
goes
playing.
104, we'd be thrilled with that. Bo Nix, I'm not a fan of. Baker
No.
Mayfield at 110 is
Boy.
intriguing.
Yeah.
Jordan Love right at 110 is intriguing to me.
Yeah.
Then you get Tyler Shuck, 119.
There's the wild card for me.
That is a wild card backup for me. If you can have him as one of your top 3 in best ball next year,
Right.
and in best ball, I'm definitely avoiding the expensive guys.
Yeah.
Trevor Lawrence would be my first pick at 80. That'd be my first guy that I'm even looking at.
Yeah.
In best ball versus in redraft, I'm probably looking at Jackson Dart.
Right.
Who's going at 77. Before that, Williams at 72. Just don't know if there's enough running upside. Jaden Daniels at 58.7 is my first intriguing guy in redraft, but
right.
You have that injury potential.
Yeah.
Burrow at 52 is interesting.
Right.
That's, we're talking early 5th round. Then I'm starting to think that might be the way to go in redraft. In best ball, I'm going cheap at quarterback this year. I'm taking 3 and I'm going cheap. I might not even make a pick until Purdy.
Yeah.
How about Purdy, Goff, and Baker Mayfield,
Right.
Love, and Shuck, and
Right.
Sam Darnold in the mix? That's like 5 guys that you can get 3 of very easily.
Yep.
And very inexpensively. But this, of course, is just the very start
right.
of the process, folks. We want to encourage you to head on over to the Data Lab. Check out our thinking in probabilities concept that we talked about. Professor lays some really cool data on us there. Keep in mind how many changes are going on. Keep in mind how bad we could draft at times with guys last season.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much uncertainty. Do not let yourself here in late February get too excited about where you see players going in fantasy football, and then head on over to the Science of Fantasy Football. And of course, come on back here next week for another edition of the Science of Fantasy Football.
Get to work, folks.
All righty.
Good job.